Hello and welcome back to another episode of Seed Age Bling Builds. Today I'm going to bring to you a deck tech for the Ancient One. Not so much in a Seed Age environment, more so like a high power environment, because though the Ancient One is an infinite mana sink, it's just not quite going to get us there efficiently. What I mean, just stick around, I'll explain everything. So the Ancient One is a simple Demir, which is an 8/8 beater. An 8/8 beater for 2 is neat, but you have to earn that slot as a beater because he has Descend 8, which means that you have to have 8 permanents in the graveyard to have this thing live, animated, and ready to go. In 8/8, vanilla practically, because it doesn't have vigilance or ward or anything like that. But an 8/8 is still a 3-turn clock for an opponent that is not doing much of anything. And so that's something to keep in mind. Then he has an activated, it has an activated ability of a 2 Demir to draw a card, to loot a card. And when you loot a card this way, target player mills cards equal to that card's mana value. What we'll probably mill ourselves, just to find combo pieces, but it's kind of mediocre, right? You're not really. This deck isn't designed to have the mathematically perfect CMC to mill each opponent. If you want something like that, then maybe do ISO Rev combo for Circu or Uno or something like that. Some other infinite mill, infinite colored mana sink. So then what? So then what are we going to do? Well, one win condition, if you're all out of win conditions, is maybe you mill out the strongest opponent at the table, right? Keep enough cards in your deck to then maybe mill out a second opponent who's not in red, and then just have the 1v1. Hopefully you drew, you did this under infinite mana, infinite colored mana loop, and at that point you could just easily deal with the 1v1. Right? After you Psych Rift the board, you could 1v1 the last opponent or the last 2 opponents. Right? You could do a 1v2, 1v1. So that's an option. It's not good by any stretch of the imagination, but them's the breaks. We're in a high power deck. Another thing we can do with this deck is I just thought of it. Oh no, right? We have our Authorical Console combo that we'll try to find with the loot ability. No lab man in this deck. I guess you could do a lab man, right? You just mill yourself if you want. And that brings us to one of the detriments of decks like this. It's a gimmick deck. So when we have a gimmicky deck, we kind of have to stuff the deck full of like lower card quality, right? You have to fill it with cards that synergize well with our commander. And so that's a huge detriment. I would have loved to have like the clone engine that I put in my other sweatier builds. No space. Need space for more permanents, especially permanents that find themselves going to the graveyard. So that's a thing we have to think about. And so enough talking. Let's get straight into it. So let's do it. All right. So we have the Ancient One and both arts. That's what we do on this channel. We have all the arts for no reason. We have Authorical Consult in the deck. It's just too simple of a combo to leave out. Authorical Consult, and so that means that I have the Tainted Pact in the back pocket. The deck could probably live without both of them or just one of them, but you're not always guaranteed to get the commander out for some reason, right? Maybe you can't climb over a Dranith Magistrate or something. Who knows? We have Intuition in the deck because we do have a valid Intuition pile, which we'll go over right now. So your Intuition pile in this deck will be a Hullbreaker Horror, a Tidespout Tyrant, and one of two things, a Body Double or a Dermotaxi. Dermotaxi, if you didn't know, because no one plays this card, as imprint, as it ETBs, you exile a creature card from a graveyard. And then you'll tap 2 untapped creatures. That's a lot to ask for in a combo deck like this. This deck is a fast combo deck. It wants to be a fast combo deck, and we're not in ad nauseum. But anyway, tap 2 untapped creatures you control. Until the end of turn, Dermotaxi becomes a copy of the exiled card, except it's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other types. And if you didn't know, because you're not like an old player, Body Double is a clone. As it ETBs, it will clone something in a graveyard. If you do, it will become a copy of that card. So we're trying to find a Tidespout Tyrant / Hullbreaker loop to generate our infinite colored mana. And we can get that live with an intuition. Of course, your opponent is probably going to give you the Dermotaxi, or they're going to look at your mana and give you a Tidespout Tyrant, because that's how it goes. And that is our intuition pile. This intuition pile was created by my boy Julian. Really, really good card player. Probably the best. Probably the best. We have some synergistic creatures that kind of help us get to Descend 8 in this deck. We have Stitcher Supplier. Of course, depending on what your hands look like, maybe Stitcher Supplier you keep alive long enough so you could do the Dermotaxi, because you have to have a floater. You have to have the commander, and you have to have a floater. So, and there's not a lot of creatures in this deck, so it's rough. We have Blood Pet. A Blood Pet, simple, sacrifice Floato black. Very, very simple. But it adds a permanent to the graveyard. So that's why it's in the deck. We have Street Wraith. Very simple. You could pitch it, pay 2 life, pitch it, and draw a card. But it's a permanent in the graveyard. Also, if you loot it, that's a 5 CMC. That's 5 cards someone's going to be milling. Again, you're probably going to mill yourself because they're trying to go fast, burr, look for a combo. We have Malevolent Hermit. You can hardcast a Hermit and then pay the blue and screw somebody. Or it's just another card you could pitch, flip it over, use it later. We have Subtlety. We're in low colors, so we can get away with like one of the elemental evoke creatures. Subtlety, again, you're not going to be able to exile a blue permanent or pitch a blue permanent because that will be exiled. But the Subtlety will ETB and then die immediately. And that does it with the tech creatures in this deck. Our other creatures, we have some Hate Bears. We have Dothy Voidwalker, Op Agent, and Orcish Bowmaster, the usual suspects. And then a handful of like draw creatures. We have the Fairy Mastermind and the Ledger Shredder. Ledger Shredder is great because it just pitches permanents, which is cool. I know a lot of people have been cutting the Ledger Shredder in from their decks in Seed Age, but it's still fine. It's whatever. It's mid. It could do its thing and survive like Bowmaster stuff. Your opponent's Bowmaster stuff. Again, we're a little bit faster of the deck. We had to cut more grindy cards in exchange for more synergistic cards. So, again, I would have loved to have like my little clone. I really, really love the mana efficient clones right now in every deck because we're in like a mid-range type strategies. And Talion is just too slow in a deck that wants to pretend to be very fast. Dark Rituals and Cabal Rituals are neat to help you cast the Tyrants and the Hullbreaker. We're not in a Cabal Ritual because we don't have enough creatures to get value off of that. I don't think. I know that would add to the graveyard, the permanent count, but whatever. Our removal package, we have a Rapid Hybridization, Pongify. We have Deadly Brolic, Cyber Conversion, which is a great addition. I don't know why more people aren't on this card. The ability to just like, at its best, turn a very, very important commander into a 2/2 vanilla, which is great. Or just get rid of the Void, Dauthi, not Dauthi. Did I say Dauthi at the beginning of the video? A Dranith Magistrate. Chain of Vapor. Resculpt. Fingerbang the One Ring. March of Swirling Mists. Just get rid of a lot of Hate Bears. A Toxic Deluge. If I had space in this deck, you could run like Languish and Yavavavi's Expertise, or whatever his name is. And then a Psych Rift. Again, your matches might come to that, where you maybe just mill out one or two opponents and then do the 1v1. But just try to find the Psych Rift before you pass the turn. Our tutors package, we have a Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Imperial Seal, Limdol's Vault, Beseech the Mirror. Beseech is a really good card. I know it's a little overly costed at triple black, but it's just so good of a card. I swear to you, I just cast it and I get the other half of a win condition. When I cast a Beseech, very rarely am I casting it for value, like an early Beseech for Ristic Study. I've done that before, but most of the time I'm just like closing out the game. It's just really, really good. There's no Merchant Scroll in this deck. I know that Intuition means that Merchant Scroll might be more important, but whatever, man. There's just no space in this deck. We have the Entomb Reanimate package in here. And we do have Buried Alive, right? Pitch 3 creatures. And I'm still on Praetor's Grasp as alternate win con. If you're in a strong enough pod, you're definitely going to take away an opponent's Thassa's Oracle. Since we are pitching a lot of cards to the graveyard, I can even grab somebody's Underworld Breach and get value out of that. So keep that in mind. Our counters package. I'm going to try to tech a Stubborn Denial. Seems pretty cute. I think I could get away with it in a deck like this, where the commander only costs 2. Mana Drain, catch the right thing, and I have a Ritual that can help pay for a Tyrant. Dispel, Swan Song, and Offer You Can't Refuse. Flusterstorm, Mental Misstep, Force of Negation, Fierce Guardianship, Mind Break Trap, Pact of Negation, and Force of Will. Now, on to the rest of the deck. Our enchantments. We have the Mystic Remora, Ristic Study. I'm going to do all 4 of the Animate Dead cards. All 4. What are you talking about, Tuna? Sit tight, boys and girls. We have a Dance of the Dead. And Animate Dead, I didn't realize it was a judge, so that's on the way. Necromancy and Last Voyage of the dildo? Last Voyage of the Blank, which is a 4 CMC Animate Dead. Let's read it together, shall we? When this enchantment ETBs, you may put a name sticker on it, okay, whatever. Then it becomes an aura with enchant creature. Return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield and attach this aura to it. Enchanted creature gets a +2/+0 for each name sticker on the aura with 7 or fewer letters. Whatever. That's all flavor text. This aura leaves the battlefield, sacrifice enchanted creature. So it's a 4 CMC animate dead, which is fine by me because I want to have one of these in hand when I get a Tyrant into the graveyard and hopefully have the combo online. Especially a deck like this, the earlier you get that loop available, maybe you can mill out all your opponents. In that case, I gotta find space for a windfall. So, follow the Moxfield link to see how this deck changes between this video and the future when I play this deck IRL over the weekend and forever and ever and ever. Let's go into an artifacts. We have a Witchclaw Talisman. We have the One Ring. And then for rocks, we have Lotus Petal, Talisman of Dominance, Fellwar Stone, Arcane Signet. We have a Mox Amber because I can get the Ancient One on board quick enough so that the Mox Amber isn't complete dead card. And it does add to my Chromox. It does add to the Mox Opal count. I've been discussing that with friends about Mox Opal counts. If Mox Opal is even worth running in decks that are not Turbo Naws. Because a lot of times, the Opal is fucking dead. And then a Mox Diamond. Then we have our colors. We have the Mana Vault, Grim Monolith, Soul Ring, and Mana Crypt. Speaking of dead cards that I have to run because of gimmicks, the Grim Monolith, we are long past the days of Grim Monolith being just a generic mana rock that goes into every deck, which is why I didn't, and I probably never will foil this out. I missed the boat on that a long time ago, and I don't think it's going to happen. It's just not a staple like it used to be a decade ago. But it is there because it's a mana positive rock that I could loop with Tidespout. Fetch lands really do help accelerate our game plan here. So maybe you want to mulligan until you find a fetch land. We have all 7 fetches. We do have, because we have a Tainted Pact, we are restricted from what our mana base looks like. So we have the island and the swamp and the snow island and the snow swamp. We have a watery grave and we have an underground sea. This is not a proxy, this is a foil inner sleeve from an eBay store that doesn't exist anymore. We have a Morphic Pool, an underground river that I want to upgrade eventually. A Tainted Isle, which is a goofy dual land. This whole cycle of a swamp exists. They're neat. Eventually we'll get a Dimir Horizon land. Manamal School at Water's Edge, which is kind of a cute card. In other decks, I used to run it in 2 or less color decks, but I think I kind of like it in 3 color decks. You could turn your commander into pseudo vigilance, which is kind of cool. Keep if you're the Tivit player, you can keep your opponents the fuck off of you, or just bluff. Just be just announce it. My friend says don't announce it, but you could play mind games if you want them to just be a scrub and ram into you, then don't announce it. But if you kind of just want them off your back so you can look at your phone during their turns, you just announce that you have a live Manamo. So that's at the floor. At the ceiling, this just does busted things with your legendary The One Ring, and that's really something. A Cephalid Coliseum. We're gonna find that threshold real quick. Same thing with the Cabal Pit. Some other utility, we have Atawada and Takanuma, which is an interesting card. I could get back Thoracle if I don't have a reanimation spell or whatever. But it's just to fill the graveyard up with things. To go fast, burr, we have an Ancient Tomb and the State of Traders. Again, not a proxy, an inner foil sleeve. And this is kind of cool. This will help accelerate our graveyard permanent count as well. For our rainbow lands in a 2-color deck, we have the Gemstone Cavern. You run this in every deck, even monocolor. Of course, we have a Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Mana Confluence, and of course, the City of Brass. And there you have it. You have the Ancient One, aka that fucking nature god spirit from Princess Mononoke, aka I don't know, some Zelda baddie. Anyway, thank you so much. I have more Dimir commanders coming up before the end of the year, so stay tuned. Bye bye.